Today we're going to be going over the copium that is currently plaguing the Helldivers community. Now this is really interesting to see. I thought that people would love the new update and the new content and the new patches, but there are some boys that are very sad that their favorite railgun and shield backpack have been nerfed. And let me just say, they were very powerful. Everybody was running them. Everybody in level 9 was running them, and then people were getting kicked supposedly for not running them. I don't know how much that was actually happening, how much of that is just, non-democratic propaganda. I'm not entirely sure. But before we get too far into the video, like, comment, subscribe. Brand new channel, very young, only our second ever Helldivers video ever. So if you like Helldivers, like, comment, subscribe, ooh, words, share the video. We have a super cool Discord also, by the way, so if you want to play Helldivers or just hang out, talk to people in the chat, it's actually fairly active Discord, so I really encourage anybody to join that. If you're a cool dude, if you're not a cool dude, don't join it. I don't want you there, so Okay, so what was happening with the Helldivers update? So the problem was the meta in Helldivers, it's already stale, okay? The people are running around with the railgun, the breaker auto shotgun, and the shield backpack, and that's what you have to run around with in order to do well at the higher difficulties, okay? And the problem is that this is just first of all, the build was overperforming. If you look at it across the stats to all the other builds in the game, it's overperforming. And I know a lot of people are going to say, well, you maybe should buff the other things instead of just nerfing the ones that are good. But the thing is, it's a PvE game. And I think this is something that people really miss a lot in PvE games. Now, when we're talking about PvP games, I think buffing everything across the board to meet the better things, I think that's a much more understandable approach. But when we're talking about a PvE game, what can happen is that if you have extremely powerful builds, you can actually detrimentally affect the long-term life of the game. What happens is you have this great build, you get stuck into this build, you can't perform in the other missions with other builds. You want to run something that's not as good in the same difficulty missions that you're used to running. You're not winning. You're not going to use those builds. You just assume they're bad. You're not going to use those weapons, and you just don't use them. And then what happens is you get stuck into using these really good builds, and you're overperforming in missions that you probably shouldn't be based on your skill level, and that finally leads to the fact that you get burnt out on the game. That's essentially the entire idea, is that you get burnt out on the game because you're just doing too well, and you can't switch up your play style. And the thing is, there's only 9 difficulties in the game, okay? So if you're playing a game where there's 9 difficulties, or let's say you're playing Dark Tide where there's like 5 difficulties or whatever, you're playing some other game where there are difficulty levels, right? You select your level, and you go into it. Thing is, if you're able to complete the highest difficulty easily or very consistently and not struggle with it too much, you're gonna get bored of the game. It's a PvE game, it's a horde-based game. If you're not struggling to actually play the game, that's the whole point, is that you're getting blown up, you're getting destroyed, you're having a fun time, and you're struggling to win. There is no real in-game progression loop to the game. If you've beaten you've completed the battle pass, you're not going to be having fun in the game if you're just winning all the time, right? You're not going to be challenged. You're not going to feel like you're progressing. You're just going to feel stagnant. And I think for the overall long-term effects of the game, I think you're basically just going to see the player base die off as they get bored. There just isn't anything else to do. They're not being challenged themselves. So yeah, that's my point on that. The second point on this whole meta thing for the game is that it's really just a skill issue for people that are really upset that their favorite loadouts have gotten nerfed. And I understand why people really like to use them. It's because when you're using a meta loadout, they feel really enjoyable. They feel really powerful. They really give you that power fantasy that people really want to have when they're playing these kinds of sci-fi, looter, shooter, horde games where you're chewing through these big hordes of enemies and doing all this crazy stuff. And that is the power trip. That's the fun part of the game. That's the dopamine hit, right? But the problem is if you get too into these meta builds, it's like an addiction. Like when you have to switch off the meta builds, when the meta builds get nerfed, it's like you're losing your fix, right? You're losing your dopamine fix, and now you have to go find something else to satisfy your dopamine, be it something else in Helldivers or a different game. People get frustrated with it, and they begin to identify with these builds as well, right? Like, oh, this is the build that I run. This is my identity in the game. This is the build I like to run. In reality, they're kind of just crutching the best things in the game, and they're not playing very uniquely or anything according to their actual personality. They're just kind of sticking to what's best in the game. And I think also that is just not good for the overall long-term effects of the game, for the community health overall. So to be totally honest, the first round of patches for Helldivers is actually incredibly positive for the game. And I know there's a lot of people hating in the community about it right now, which is interesting to me. I thought the overall Helldivers community is extremely positive, and I think we're letting some malevolent, not so democratic,
No, don't die, don't die, don't die, don't die.
unpatriotic people, perhaps, Terminid
Get up and
influenced
run,
type
dude.
dudes
Run.
get into the media systems. Perhaps the media, in fact,
my.
is owned by the
Oh,
Terminids.
did you
I don't
follow
know.
the rail?
I'm just making up ideas, okay? You don't put it on me, but okay. The real fact of the matter is that the updates for the game, the patches, are actually really good. And they really show that the devs are actually listening to the community. Specifically for the laser cannon, I think this was a perfect one, because when I started playing Helldivers, I saw the laser cannon, I was like, that thing looks and sounds awesome. And then I got it, and it was terrible. And it was basically unusable. I would whip it out, and it looks like, and they mentioned this in the patch notes as well, it looks like this big, giant drilling beam that's going to drill through these big, heavy targets, and then you use it, and it doesn't do freaking anything to anything, and it's really just like an SMG cannon, or like a soft target cannon, and it doesn't look like that at all. It looks like it's supposed to do some serious damage. But what they noted here in the patch is that they actually listen to the community and say, hey, we understand that people are really not satisfied with the way that this weapon is actually working in the game. It appears that it's going to be this kind of weapon, and when you use it, it's really not, and it creates this dissatisfying loop of gameplay. And in response to that, we've decided to listen to the community, which is something you never hear most developers say. They're saying, hey, we're listening to the community. We are actually going to do the community suggestion, and we're going to see how it goes. So they've upped the weapon, and they've made it into this kind of drilling, heavier target kind of weapon. We'll see how that turns out. It might be busted. They say they might revert it if it doesn't work out well. We'll see. But that's not the actual point of what I'm talking about. The actual point of what I'm talking about is that these developers are actually really committed to the game. They're really committed to listening to the community and making changes to the game that are really healthy for the community. So I don't have any problems with the updates that they have today. I think people that are really probably upset with the updates are just people that were crutching and only using those weapons, and didn't really want to branch out and try the other stratagems and weapons. And something that Helldivers really has is great plethora of things that you can do and run, and different play styles that you can kind of shoot for, and that's something that really keeps the gameplay fresh. So if you see everybody locked into the railgun, shield backpack, running the highest difficulty missions easily, you're going to see the player base start to drop off when they get bored and new things come by, and I just think that's not going to be great for the long term of the game, as I've already said probably like 5 times already in this video. But something else that's really cool is that we need to consider the long-term growth of this game, and not as in player retention and players having a good time, but actually the power creep of the game. What is happening, because we're already seeing like these vehicles being deployed in the games where there are rumors of 8-player matches in the game, or increased from 4-player squads at least to who knows how many people on an actual planet fighting. Can you imagine like 30 Helldivers or something on the planet fighting? That would be absolutely ridiculous. So in terms of the power creep of the game, I think Helldivers actually has some serious potential, and I think you could really see some serious power creep over the course of the game as well. So that might be why some of these things need to be toned down as well, because when we have these new vehicles added, new stratagems, new weapons, new enemy types, there could be some seriously more dangerous enemy types added into the game. There's all kinds of things that it seems that the devs are signaling that they've been really worked on and really have thought ahead onto how this live quote-unquote service game is going to go and how it's going to evolve over time. We're already seeing them implement really great updates into like lore, people with Malevolent Creek, or however you say it, the Creek. Everybody knows it's the Creek, okay? Honestly, one of the funniest things I've experienced in gaming lately. I think the role playing and the world building within this game is fantastic, and they're leaning into it hard. They've already put in like in-game audio clips, I think, unless that's just fake news that I saw. But as far as I can tell, it was not about Malevolent Creek, and just the world building is fantastic. So overall, I'd have to say that the patch 1 for Helldivers is an absolute dub. I think the future of Helldivers is actually looking really bright. And I think as long as they continue to update the game and provide interesting or fun content, engage with the community in an open fashion like this, I think we're going to really see a great run from Helldivers. I mean, I think people really underestimate just how fantastic it is to have developers that are clearly invested in the community and also invested in the content that they're bringing to the community, bringing quality content that actually improves the game that the community wants. Like a lot of times you'll just think they'll just sit back at their office, they won't say anything, you won't hear from devs for a month or two, they're supposedly working on something, and an update comes out, they don't say much about it, nobody likes the update, and the game starts to die, and negative feedback loop or whatever, it sucks. But what we're actually seeing here is a really positive outlook from the devs, and I think the clear communication the devs give on their reasoning, I don't think you can go wrong. I don't think you can blame the devs for anything. I think they're doing a fantastic job, and I'm really excited to see where Helldivers goes. This was just a quick video, guys, today, something I had to throw together. I haven't made a video in a while. It was midterm season, okay? So I was MIA for a bit, all right, but I'm back. I'm here. We're here to grind some videos. I know after the next week I'm going on vacation, so after that, but yeah, Helldivers, dude. Join the Discord. Whatever. I don't know. Have a good day.
Is a bit rough for us.
Mission completed.